I got known in the industry for making tomahawks first, so that's where I started out, and then I got into making knives. I mean, knives is the obvious next step, or the first step for most guys. They make a knife. First they're nerdy and they want to make a sword, which they find out that's a big pain in the ass. So they make a small knife.
I did that one.
Yeah, oh yeah, I did that. And so they make knives, and then maybe they get back to the bigger knives. But tomahawks was my big thing, so I started making integral tomahawks, so they're all steel. But there was other guys out there making stuff that was more tactical, and I like the tactical stuff, but I have no inroads into that community. I didn't serve. I don't know guys that like have close ties to the guys that have that kind of reputation for making tomahawks that are made for doing bad things to people. So I went the bushcraft route and started making stuff that was just for the outdoorsmen. I make some stuff for military and law enforcement, mostly bushcraft guys. So I did a lot with Scandi grinds. I make about 1,000 knives a year with tomahawks and knives, but it's a mixed bag. I got about 30 different designs, and so I'm a bit ADD because I can't focus on something. Most guys I know that make a living doing this and make like 6-8 designs, and I've got double, triple that. So that's kind of a double-edged sword that cuts both ways. It diversifies you and people, but it also makes you hard to identify with one particular model. People go, oh, that guy makes this knife. He's like, nah, he makes a shitload of knives. So a lot of this stuff, I'll just do a quick tomahawk demo. Like, talk about intent. Like, so when I make a knife, I'm just making a knife for ergonomic or for like appearances. It can't, not because it looks good in a photo. It's got to function first at a high level because of the ergonomics, the overall design. The handle has to be comfortable. This is all stuff that's obvious, but a lot of guys miss. A lot of makers miss. They make stuff that looks awesome in a photo. The handles may rip your hands up because they're too aggressive or whatever. So that's all stuff I take into consideration. So this, for example, this started out as a double bit tomahawk, which is cool looking, super impractical, because you got 2 bits. Guys, a lot of people don't know how to run double bit axes. So I started thinking about it, and this was a conversation with Jason Lester River. He's a kind of a thought genius on concept and stuff. And he said, maybe you think about making a splitting spike on the end of it. So, okay, I'm like, yeah, obviously you would think that the main bit would be used for splitting wood and would work well for that. And it does, but it doesn't work as well as making a wedge dedicated for that. So I'll give you a demonstration of how I would use this particular one. Right? That works at home. If you got a log propped up and you're using a full-size axe, it's dangerous as hell out in the bush by yourself, or even around a campground. People cut themselves this way all the time, especially with an axe like this. It's not that big and it doesn't cut that efficiently this way, so they're going to put more effort into it, and there's a lot more that can go wrong that way. So we teach people, I learned this from Jason, who learned it from Morris Kohansky. It's called contact splitting. So obviously you're not picking the gnarliest, twisted up, most nasty piece of wood you can, because you're going to freaking hate life. You get the job done, but it takes a lot more work. So there's something with relatively straight grain. And then if this was a round, I could split this. I've split as big as 6 inches with this, 6-inch rounds with this spike. So what you're doing here is you're driving it in, and you're using a stump, a down tree. You can use a rock, but I don't recommend it. Sometimes it passes through and you don't want to hit the spike on the rock. And you're just doing stuff like that, and you're splitting the wood. Now this is a longer piece, so this will probably take a couple bites. One. That's a safer way to process wood. Now, this is oak. This is not ideal. Mostly I'm in an area where I'm using maple or cedar or whatever. It'll split a lot easier. But you can process your wood down a lot faster that way and safer, albeit a little noisier. But if we're not trying to stay hidden and we're just making fire by ourselves, that's a good way to do it. So that's what this particular axe, this spike, is designed for. It does part metal nicely and other things you can imagine, but it'll handle that. But again, what's the design intent originally, right? So you figure out what things will do on their own when you get them, and you pay the money and you take it to your house and do whatever the hell you want to it after that. But the end on this right here is for blunt force. You can break windows with it. Obviously, you can break windows with this. Anybody ever broken safety glass with an axe or a knife? It's hard. It messes things up. So this is a better way to break than that. You can use that spike for it. So there's multiple considerations, but you guys probably noticed a dimple on this axe. What do you think that's for? Anybody think?
Spindle drill.
Right. Yeah. You heard me say that, or you figured that out all by yourself?
No.
Good. Yeah. So that's exactly right. So has anybody here ever made a spindle or a bow drill fire?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. it's not as easy as it looks, is it?
No, it's
No,
nice.
Yeah, you forget to breathe and you gas out and you get smoked out when the bundle starts. Yeah.
Big flater's a lot easier.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot easier. Road flare, all that shit works better. But that's if you have to, right? But
No shame.
so the idea behind this here is you can take this cordage off, make your bow. You've got the hardest part of the bow drill fighter is to find the bearing block. So that's what's in this. You got hardened steel, no problem. So I got this with me, and we've had classes where guys will take just this and see how fast they can get a fire going. So again, all that, I got this real estate on here. That's all part of the design process. Is like, what else can I do with this tool without adding too many bells and whistles? You get too gimmicky, and it's like, eh. He was integral in the design of that original knife with a knife maker, a guy named Dave Beck. He made the first one that was in the movie. And the idea was to make the ultimate survival tracker knife, right? Well, I don't think they call it tracker knife. The ultimate survival knife at the time. It's kind of like the what gun is the best gun for everything, right? Not really any gun. You know, it's all what you got at the time. But they attempted it by making this knife that was similar to this. It has this big, the most iconic part is this hook right here. And why is that? You know, what's that all about? Well, for one, this works really good for skinning and boning game, working around joints and working around bone. Main reason, the thing that I like about it, and you've got a sharpened spine, so that works good for scraping, for making tinder, like fine piles of tinder to catch a spark. The big part of this is, now again, if I had my druthers and I had a bigger selection of wood, of course you always have to work with what you're with. You want straight grain wood, ideally if you can find cedar, if you can find poplar, if you can find softwood, it curls better. This works really good wet. You can also do this on wet wood, so if you don't have dry wood with this, just a little sidebar on tinder bundles, feather up a bunch of wet wood, and by the end of the day, it will. If you feather it fine enough, it'll catch a spark just fine. Especially in an environment like where it's dry like this, or where you are, it will be it'll be ready for fire the next day. So if you don't have something at the time, you're kind of thinking forward, like how can I turn this green wood into fire here? It's all about processing wood. So this little hook is designed to make feather sticks a little easier. Again, if I'm selecting the wood right and I'm getting straight grain stuff. Pine is tricky because it gets a wave in it, but if you work it right, you can do it. Just slow down, and you break the stick right in half. The thing with this is, you notice I'm pulling towards myself. A lot of guys say, "Oh, you're going to stab yourself." I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. Slight bend in the elbow and just using the body. It works just as well to do it the other way too, like a traditional knife, like if you're feather sticking with a traditional knife. It works fine that way too. So the thing with knives is custom knives are awesome, but if you don't have any skills at all with a knife, buy a Mora. Spend $40, get good on it, and then again, it's using your gear. High-end gear is no substitute for skills. So that's why we're all here, right? To learn skills to make us more of a weapon or more valuable in the environment. So if you have more knife skills, which is why I recommend that bushcraft class is coming up in a couple weeks. We talk about knife skills in depth there. About maintaining them, using them safely, and it's interesting what you see in classes. Man, it's freaking scary sometimes. A lot of people don't know how to handle knives. It only takes one or two bad experiences to wreck your reputation. So that's the one thing I learned from being in this industry as long as I have, like selling for 30 years, but being full-time the last 7. Dude, if you don't keep up on all those details, somebody will torch your reputation. I had a guy break a $750 1/4-inch steel knife, Wolverine. I don't know if you've ever seen them. It looks like a boat paddle. It's huge. It's a reboot of the Spetsnaz machete. It's a cool knife. It's a pack knife. It's a wood processing machine, but it doesn't throw real well. And 2 pounds, and not designed to throw at all. Anyway, the moral of the story is the guy broke it in half, and I was like, holy shit! You get a picture of that, and it makes you pucker hard. Anything can be broken, right? When you throw hardened steel against things, this little thing called harmonics will blow blades up. And this guy, he started asking me. He told me he broke the knife. He sends me a picture and he said, "Is this normal?" Of course, then I instantly, lose my breath for a few minutes, and started asking questions, do a little digging, and I'm like, "What'd you do?" "Oh, I threw it. I was throwing it against the door." And I'm like, "Okay, you're throwing it against the door." So I'm kind of establishing, was this guy being an idiot with a knife? Ultimately, I'm going to give him a new knife because it's my reputation online, but I want to find out. Turns out he was throwing it against a solid core door, leaning it against a 30-yard steel dumpster on a concrete pad. Oh. He missed the door, hit the dumpster, and you could see it had done it multiple times. And I got the knife, and I'm like, I didn't tell him any of this. I just gleaned it all, documented it, and said, if he's going to be an a-hole, I'll take it out. Otherwise, I gave him a new knife, $750. Gave him a brand new one. He bought 3 more axes after that, $500-600 a pop.
Nice.
So that was like, okay, that was the most valuable thing I learned there was, okay, I made a slight design change that would make the blade a little more resilient, but it was all about consistency and keeping that reputation and being a guy that honors his word, even though I was not in the wrong. So that was kind of the philosophical side of knife making. That